vaccinating, she went in and she asked the nurse, does this vaccine have thimerosal? It says it has mercury in it. Oh, no, it doesn't. So Sue Ellen said, can I see the bottle? So they handed her the bottle, and right there on the label was thimerosal. Okay? Because, a lot of the staff, nurses, they don't really understand. They haven't been trained. They believed this mantra, this 200-year mantra, that vaccines are safe and effective. So let's talk a little bit about the COVID vaccine. And I think what might be a little more interesting for the crowd is maybe let's just, rather than me just pile through these slides, what is your understanding about the COVID vaccine? I'd like to just hear from some of you what you think.
Safe and effective.
Safe and effective. Very good, very good.
Brand new technology.
Brand new technology.
Not a vaccine.
It's not a
Experimental.
What they're telling us
Experimental,
or
yeah.
what we believe about it.
Well, just, what you heard, what your belief is. I have patients, I feel like I haven't done my job because I've had patients come in and say, I got the vaccine.
They said it'll keep you from getting 97% of the symptoms.
Right, so what it's designed to do, and what they fully announce is that it'll just decrease your getting the symptoms.
Moderna is a relatively new company. They were started in 2010, and they never had a product come to market. Nothing has been approved by the FDA.
Very good, that's right, that's right. Yeah, it's modern RNA, that's what they keep it.
But it's the only way we'll ever get back to a normal life.
Right, it's the only way we're going to, see all these little phrases?
But you still have to wear a mask.
See how that,
Socially.
you know what's interesting, I'll tell you, what's interesting about propaganda is if you keep repeating a mantra, what will happen is you will begin to assimilate it as if you had come to this conclusion on your own. Is that not scary?
I personally think one of the scariest things, it's almost like asking which conspiracies aren't. I mean, we've come to the point that there's so much information on the left, the right, the middle, the offset, no matter where, and everybody keeps saying fact, 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 fact. So you get to the point that you either throw your hands up and just say, you just kiss the ring, you get the injection, and you move on. Or you stand up and then they're like ready to throw you into the loony side of things, and that's where people lose their licenses, lose all the things that, and they're trying to figure out, is this worth it, or is this the mountain to die on? So that's the hardest thing, I think, for almost anybody I've talked to, whether they're wearing the mask or not. They don't like it, nobody likes it, but they still are like, this is what they're telling us to do. So some people are just doing it because they have no other option, they don't feel it.
Yeah, basically the point is that we're all being psyoped. And so that's why, but truth always keeps popping up. It's that nasty little thing. It's like science. Science, you can keep trying to push it down, you can try to manipulate it, but truth keeps popping up. It has a nasty little tendency. Emery.
Speaking of truth, Pfizer is one of the 4 vaccine makers that have paid out billions in fines for falsifying science, etc. And so when they came out without doing any animal trials, as obviously it's in the experimental phase right now, and said it was what, 90% effective or 95% effective, the vaccine. Why would anyone believe that when they lied in the past and paid out fines to the government?
Well, that's a good segue. So I'm going to just kind of skip through some of this because I have a feeling I'm going to put you to sleep if I don't. These are just some of there's 46 residents, Spanish flu died after the vaccine, 22 died, 29, 13, 10, 22. I mean, it's just, the numbers are adding up, but you're not going to see this. There's actually been, as of a couple of weeks ago, 929 deaths and over 12 or 13,000 side effects reported. Now, I think the underreporting is more than, I don't think it's 1% like it is theoretically, because I think we've had much more focus on COVID. So I will grant on that there's more reporting going on now, but it still is underreported. Yes, ma'am, back.
So the Alzheimer's Association is against flu vaccines for anybody
different chemicals. Let's talk the flu vaccine, because that's a big one. We're all pushed to get the flu shot, right?
Right.
Okay. So I tell my patients, I say, should I get a flu shot? And I say, well, you should get a flu shot if you're comfortable with the following. There's about a 20% chance it'll be effective. Your immune system is going to be weakened after the vaccine. You're going to shed virus for a period of time, so you're actually more dangerous to people around you. It has probably 8 to 10 different chemicals in it, including heavy metals. A lot of the flu shots still have mercury in them. And they have retroviruses from the cell culture it was grown on. So if you're comfortable with all that stuff, get your flu shot. And guess who's been having more reactions to the COVID vaccine? Those who've had the very good. Excellent. So let me go ahead and so these are just about all people dying from the vaccine. This one here is this Inverness, Scotland. People were vaccinated. 17 became infected with the virus after their first dose. That's lovely. Let's see here. We can go back to some of these things. See, tonight this talk can be somewhat technical, so I think I'm going to try to. So I'm going to get to my Pfizer slide. Bear with me here. Let me just cover one point. I think it's key. So if you go on PubMed and you type in COVID vaccine side effects, you're going to see a term come up over and over and over again called antibody-dependent enhancement. Has anyone heard of this term?
Yeah.
Or ADE, okay? Well, this is what virologists have feared, and we have seen this already. They have tried in the past to have vaccines for coronavirus, and they've failed. RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, is similar to coronavirus. They killed a couple of kids, and there were a bunch of them maimed with this antibody-dependent enhancement. And what happens with that is, when you get the vaccine, later when you're exposed to what's called the wild-type virus, which you are going to eventually, you have a way overreaction. Remember the cytokine storm you heard about? Well, I think what we're afraid of is all these people getting vaccinated for COVID is we're going to see rashes of these cytokine storms. There's people like Judy Mikovits is predicting, she says millions of deaths. I don't know if that's an exaggeration or not, but she says, I can't sleep at night. She's so concerned. And this gal's a molecular biologist / virologist. I've read all her stuff. She's brilliant. So the same thing happened with dengue fever. A couple of years back, they saw this antibody-dependent enhancement problem, and 600 kids died in the Philippines. There's still lawsuits going on about that. So we've been aware of these problems. So here, this was some data, as I mentioned, from the Children's Health. That's RFK site. As of February 12th, there were 15,923 adverse reactions reported. We don't really know what that true number is. And over 929 deaths.
Can you go slower, because you're going too fast for me.
Okay, so let's back up.
So some of them know a lot about vaccines. I don't. So
Okay, so let's back
you're
up.
going
Good,
too
thank
fast.
you. Thank
You're
you.
going too fast.
Okay.
I can't write that fast, and I don't know what some of the things you're talking about.
Okay, so let's go back. Thank you. So let's go back to RSV. Are you with me with that one?
It's an overheightened immune system
Okay.
response.
So this was 30, 40 years ago. They tried to create a vaccine to RSV, which is a very common,
Is that the rotavirus?
it's respiratory syncytial virus, different virus.
Okay.
But it can give pneumonia and kids get really sick. I'm not
Okay.
a pediatrician, but it doesn't, So they tried to create a vaccine, and these virologists, they're trying to make a difference. I get it. They're trying to do good stuff, but they're just not out in the real world. And what happened is that because of this overreaction, there were 2 kids that died, and there was a number of them that had severe side effects to that. So then fast forward to about 2 years ago, dengue fever, which is a bad viral infection, they tried to do the same thing. They created this vaccine called, Dengvaxia. And what happened is that they developed this antibody-dependent enhancement. In fact, Scott Halstead, it was a dengue, or is a dengue researcher who came up with that term. He actually coined that term. And he warned that the Sanofi vaccine might trigger more severe disease than given to children who never had a dengue virus infection. And that's where about 600 kids in the Philippines died.
Okay. So I'm just gonna say it back to you, is that okay?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
No, that's what I want. I enjoy more of a dialogue. I like to talk. You know, it's better than me just stand up going, listen to myself rattle on.
So the kids did not have dengue fever. They were okay.
Correct.
But they were in a dengue fever environment where they might get it.
Correct.
And so they had an experimental vaccine that they tried on the kids.
Right.
And instead of fortifying their immune system against the dengue, it was like, come on, let's party! And they
So
went
when they were
haywire.
exposed to dengue, their immune system went nuts.
It went crazy, okay.
Right. Kind of like that cytokine storm.
And they died.
600 of them died, yes.
And the rest of them were funky.
There was quite a number of side effects. Not all of them, but there was quite a number of them. So that's what oops. So that's what we worry about with the COVID. You know, Del Bigtree had a great statement. He said, anytime you see the word rushed and science in the same sentence, you know, take a step back. It normally takes 5 to 10 years to get vaccines through. And only about 6% of vaccines are ever approved. How many believe that these COVID vaccines were approved by the FDA?
They're not.
Has that been your impression? Good.
Oh, that's
We
the
have a learned audience here, because it hasn't. And it's been for experimental use because we have an emergency,
Right.
which I completely argue with.
I can't prove.
What I tell my patients, and I know I'm speaking blasphemy, but to me, I do believe it's a real virus. You know, I've read Andy Kaufman and Tim Collins stuff about exosomes. I think if you look at the patterns of spread and all that, I do think it's a real virus. It's just, in my opinion, it's just like a nasty flu bug. It's not influenza, it's corona, I get that. But it's very similar symptomatology. In my practice, I've treated probably 20 to 25 patients, and they are all doing fine. And I had one that had to go to the hospital, but at the same time, his house caught on fire and he had smoke inhalation. Probably had something to do with it.
How are you treating them?
I have a slide for that. I'll go over that later. So you asked how do I treat it? So we can get you out of trouble. Yes.
Is that the same thing that antibody enhancement, is that the same thing as pathogenic priming?
Very good. Yes. They have several names. She asked the question: is ADE the same as pathogenic priming? Yes, the same. It's the same thing. Good. You saw my eyes. The mothers, they can see.
I'm writing
the back of
as
the
fast as I
memory.
can, yeah.
And I'll make all these slides available. Whoever wants the PowerPoint, just drop me a note by email. I'll send it to you. I'll send whatever you want. Yes, sir.
A lot of times people like to hear it from the people that they say they respect. And I know a lot of times they will go after and they'll pull an old thing from Fauci, or they'll find something on the CDC. Is there something that you can recommend that maybe like a one shot, a one hit wonder? If somebody's gonna read something and they're gonna say, I don't care if it's National Geographic, something that they would say, I can read that and I can get the points that you're saying, 2, 3 of them, enough to go, okay, I need to be really concerned about it.
Yeah, they're very good questions. There's some place you kind of get a concise, to the point, reliable information about all this stuff.
If they have it written off already,
I
then
think-
people will write off a lot of people.
Yeah, I think Children's Health Defense, I think they're really good. RFK tries very hard to have everything referenced. You know, he's an attorney, and attorneys cross their T's and dot their I's. And I think Joe Mercola is good. You know, I've listened to Joe for years, and he does some real nice interviews, and he's got, everything's referenced. And so you can get a lot of good information from those sites. The problem is that you know, like in debates, you know, you hear this term racist. Well, when somebody is debating someone, if they can't debate them, they call them a name. You notice that? It just kind of shuts down. So like somebody like me, they say, oh, you're an anti-vaxxer. See? Well, I'm not anti-vaccine. You know, vaccines, in theory, are much like homeopathy. You know, if you used a little tiny dose of something and it created an immune response in the patient to help them not to get a disease, I'd be carrying the banner at the front of the parade. The problem is all of the adjuvants and all the junk they put in them, and then these retroviruses they could put in. That's the problem that I have with a lot of these things. And with this now, this mRNA nonsense, we have no idea what the long-term effects of this are going to be. Does anybody know why they skipped the animal trials?
All the ferrets died.
The ferrets died. Very good. Yeah. They know full. Did you hear about India? 1 billion customers, right? They asked Pfizer to just do a study for India's sake because they needed a little more data. Guess what Pfizer said? No. Now that should speak volumes to you. For a company to give up a billion potential customers, if they knew they had a good product and it would stand the test of time, they would do that study in the New York Minute. And you can look that up.
Where was that about the India?
So that's just been recent. I read some, I get in the garage with stuff. Check Children's Health Fund, might be on an RFK site. But it's out there. So this is interesting. So Merck, which is a big company, they scrapped